Hi Charlestown, welcome to another issue of Live at 5 with Mayor Hodges. I'm very fortunate today to have a couple of special guests with me. We are at the Indiana American Water Facility in Jeffersonville, and I'm here with Operational Manager Bill Reedy and Puddles, Indiana American Water's mascot. As you can see, we are taking extreme care in our current COVID situation to make sure that we are all practicing mask wearing and physical distancing.
Yes.
So, Bill, we've got this set up. What do you think? Are we going to be able to have a good conversation here with distance and stuff?
I think we are, and Puddles is wearing his mask. He looks good with that mask on. But I think we've well prepared with our distancing. We've done our symptom checks and our thermometer checks, and according to our rules, we're okay with removing our masks in this situation. So, Puddles, do you think that in agreement with that? You think we're good? Okay. Well, that's great.
Thank
you.
Puddles. All right, so we will take these off for the interview since we are maintaining our safe distance. Bill, I just really want to thank you for agreeing to talk to us and to the Charlestown residents. Can you just kind of introduce yourself for folks and let us know a little bit about what you do here at IAW?
Sure, you're welcome, Mayor, and we appreciate the opportunity to help get some information out about the water situation in Charlestown. We've been able to do that a few times in the last year, and we're grateful for the opportunity to talk with you about that. So I am the operations manager for Southern Indiana, so I cover a couple of other utility operations we have, but my office is right here in Jeffersonville, and so I'm especially connected to our local operation right here. I've also been involved early on in the Charlestown project for us, and so my history with that goes back a couple of years. I think I understand those problems, and hopefully, more importantly, we're understanding what we need to do to fix them.
Good. Well, IAW, correct me if I'm wrong, purchased Charlestown's water about 14 months ago. It was March of 2019, I believe, was that transfer date. It's no secret to our Charlestown viewers that you inherited a system that's a bit of a mess. Being on the user end of it, we've had issues for quite a while. So can you share with our Charlestown residents what IAW has done in those 14 months to kind of help with our water issues?
Sure. So probably starting at the beginning, which is really what we did in March of last year. We started at the raw water source, the wells themselves, and we had cleaned the wells. There are 4 wells that supply Charlestown. We're continuing to operate those, at least for the interim, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But so we started with cleaning the wells. There was a lot of work to do at the treatment plant as well. We replaced the electrical service to improve reliability. We added a permanent fixed site generator. We often station our portable generator to be able to operate the wells and the plant in the event of a power outage. Interestingly, I think in talking about the history, there's infrequent power outages. Well, not so much. I think I can think of 3 or 4 of them that have been a number of days. So we did that kind of work. We did a lot of work in the distribution system as well. We cleaned all the water storage tanks. In order to remove any buildup of sediment that we had there, and just a lot of improvements at the plant and the distribution system for reliability. All of our work when we started in March of last year was working towards being able to flush the system. We knew that was needed. We know it had been done in the past, but our analysis showed that it probably didn't get enough velocity actually in the mains to remove the sediment and clean them. So indeed that proved to be true. We had determined that we needed to replace a number of hydrants. We actually installed about 100 new hydrants in August of last year. About 60 of those were to replace ones that didn't operate properly. So that was another opportunity to make an improvement. So we took that opportunity, and then we added about 30 more in locations so that we would be able to flush that. There were a number of subdivisions with no hydrants at all. So when the system was flushed, those subdivisions were not flushed. So we went ahead and made that improvement in August and got ready to flush in the fall. So along the way though, and this continues to this day, maybe if we could point to our props for a minute, we've done a lot of work on replacing mains as we find problems and service lines. So this would be our before, and then these kinds of things would be our after. So we're able to replace pipes along the way. You can see the deteriorated condition both externally from corrosion and internally from buildup, manganese and other minerals. So that work has been going on the whole time as well, and there's plenty more of that to do. It's a find them and fix them thing. Mm-hmm. But the best short-term fix that we identified was being able to flush that system thoroughly, and so we were able to do that in the fall of last year, starting in September and concluding in early October.
Okay, great. It sounds like flushing is a very important part of getting that manganese buildup to flush through, and that's one of our primary problems. It sounds like is that manganese buildup, and I mean I'm looking at these pipes and I can see one they're in very sad shape in the sense that they actually have holes and rust, but also as I look into the pipes I can see that there's this buildup and corrosion, so there's no way the water was flowing properly through these. Right. Or cleanly through these. And then I look at these nice fresh blue lines over here and I imagine the water coming out, and that actually fills me with great hope to know that these came from Charlestown, these pipes.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so these are Charlestown artifacts.
Yes, they
pipes. It's nice to know that they're being replaced with this other equipment, but it sounds like flushing, regular flushing right now is a vital part of getting that done. Can you explain why it's been so long since we've had to flush if the last one was in October or September of last year?
Right, well, most systems that take care of maintenance, most water systems that take care of maintenance typically flush at least once a year. And probably once a year is the normal that you'd find in most utilities. I think when there are special water quality problems or considerations, you can do it more frequently. We fully anticipated the need to do it more frequently in Charlestown. We thought initially that it would probably be at least 2 times per year, very more likely that it would be more than that, maybe 3 times per year. So when we had concluded in October of last year, our original plan was to start as early as we could in the spring, February or March. Mm-hmm. February, it can be problematic at times. Oftentimes it's warm enough. The freezing water is a concern. Sure. Getting on streets, getting in people's yards, causing a lot of problems with freezing. Freezing the hydrants themselves is a problem as well. But usually in this part of the world, by March, you're able to flush. So that was our plan at the time. And at the risk of having it sound like an excuse, it really is a reason though. The COVID problem in March that came upon us all and obviously impacts us very much to this day and probably will for the foreseeable future. That was really the reason that we chose not to flush in March. And at the time, we didn't really know how widespread the outbreak would be, what the impact on employees would be, what the impact on customers would be. The first thing we saw quickly was that most people were at home, working at home or their children being home from school. And so a lot of people at home, it just did not seem like the time to resume that flushing, even though we had the idea that would probably be good from a technical point of view. So we made that decision to delay that a bit. Again, at the time too, we had seen success from that fall flushing. We track water quality complaints all the time. We had seen those diminish. There was not a pressing need, we believed. So measuring that, the fact that the water seemed to be clean and in pretty good shape from the recent flushing, we chose to delay that for a number of months. That was the main reason for the delay in March.
Well, and I understand the catch-22 that you're in there, and we certainly appreciate you looking out and measuring the needs of the community and our customers, because I know that water was flying off the shelves at that time anyway. Right. We were having product shortages all over town, everything from toilet paper to bottled water. And I remember we only have one grocery store in town, and I remember at that grocery store there was a sign up that you couldn't take more than 3 gallons at a time of water. And so we all know that the flushing events always lead to that really bad brown moments as they're flushing out our particular area. And so having already a situation where people were at home and gathering water off the shelves from the bottle, it would have been even more of a problem had the brown water events been exacerbated by the flushing in March. So we appreciate, you know, your flexibility on that. But here we are flushing again.
Right.
And so you guys have been fantastic about spreading the message. We've had notices up on our social media reminding people that we are flushing right now. It's for the whole month of July, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And there are gallons of water available at City Hall that IAW has dropped off for customers to use. And so, again, we appreciate that. As you can imagine, it also gets very frustrating on the user end, having those brown water events and not always knowing when they're going to happen because of disruptions in the mains or whatever that you can't even predict. What other short-term solutions are you working on that kind of in the next few months or up to the next year would be something you're looking at for us?
Sure. Again, in the short term, this regular periodic flushing is the best thing we can do. And again, I think we showed success with that last fall in through the end of the year. So that'll be our main thing. So we'll stay on top of that. And in fact, knowing what we know now, we would not skip that in 3 months. We regardless of the rest of the situation in the world, we will find a way to get that done. We have to find a way to get that done because it is critical. I think we learned through this that when you get to that 3 or 4 month period, it's not an option to defer it. So that was a lesson learned early. Mm-hmm. A couple of other things that we've done is that we've installed some automatic flushing devices. We installed those on hydrants, and we set those in areas that had seen a number of complaints or a number of problems last fall. So we deployed those. We believe they were effective. In fact, so much so that we've gotten more of those, and we're going to install more of those. I think we deployed 5 of them originally. We'll have at least another 5, maybe more than that. What we've learned in the flushing that we've done so far this spring, we did start about 2 weeks ago. What we've learned is that it seems that the accumulation of manganese is near the treatment plant. Okay. And so that's good information. And it tells us that probably some of the changes we've made in the treatment process to oxidize the manganese, to get it to come out of solution, and you actually want it out so that you can flush it out.
Sure.
So we've seen that it's accumulating in those hydrants near the plant. And in most cases, those are kind of remote. So they would be good candidates for installing these flushing devices. So we will install those and deploy those as well.
Great.
Another thing we're working on is a little bit more scientific. I mentioned that flushing based on time, based on 3 or 4 months, and that'll provide the majority of the guidance. But I think there's some other things we can do. So some data tracking. We can look at chlorine residuals in the distribution system. We can correlate the customer complaints that we're getting on our GIS to locate where they're occurring and how frequently they're occurring. And we can couple that measurement of chlorine residual. Maybe it'll tell us a trend so that when it hits a point where it continues to drop, that it'll trigger us to flush. And if that means it's 2 months, then it means it's 2 months. But I think we're looking to have some other triggers tell us when we need to flush before it becomes a customer issue. That happened this time around. It ultimately became evident for the need when there were a couple of major fires in the system, and of course fire departments pulling on those hydrants, doing their job, by the way, an excellent job in public safety, but they're doing their job. Well, that just stirs up the system. We had another situation where we were tying in a main, one of these main replacements here, replacing something like that with something like this. That required some flushing when you install a new main to clean that out. That caused another problem, and these things happen days apart. And it really gave no chance for the water to ever settle down. So it's kind of it's ironic that the way to clean this up is to flush, but what causes the problem is this inadvertent flushing. So you have to control it, you have to be systematic about it, you have to be thorough with it, and when it occurs randomly, that's when we get the customer complaints and the problems that it creates for customers.
Well, it sounds like you're certainly doing the work on your end, using the expertise that you bring to the system to put that data into the most effective use, and so I appreciate that. Manganese isn't going away. I mean, it's still causing a problem. So these are great short-term solutions.
Right.
But as someone who has, rooted down in Charlestown and has no plans to go anywhere, what can you tell us about our long-term plans to address this?
Sure. And when we were looking at acquiring the system, so that process was a year or two in the making. How time flies, but it was a while. But we knew that the ultimate solution would be a combination of short-term in the interim until we could get to the long-term. The long-term does involve a number of these distribution system improvements, pipe replacements, service line replacements, some of these things we've talked about. There's a number of situations where we find where there was a new main installed, but the service lines weren't transferred. Maybe to save cost, maybe, I don't know why, but there'd be really no reason to do that. So that kind of work will continue, tying in dead ends. Dead ends create a problem with water quality. So there's a number of those things we'll continue to do. The big effect too would be to provide filtered water, to remove the manganese from going into the water system to begin with. It won't accumulate in there if you stop putting it in. Mm-hmm. And ultimately that's the solution. So we are looking at a number of things. We have been, really since the last year, a number of options for providing filtered water to Charlestown. And they range from tying the Charlestown system into this system, our Southern Indiana system. That's a possibility. We have some other options that we've been diligently pursuing with a couple of potential partners to provide a more regional solution, so working with other water utilities to deliver filtered water to Charlestown, that's an option. Of course, a treatment plant in Charlestown itself is an option. That would be the longest term and most costly. Mm-hmm. So we really believe in the interim it's worthwhile exhausting these other possibilities. So we're working on that. But ultimately, it's to stop putting manganese in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's all very encouraging. For so long, people in Charlestown have heard all possible solutions.
Sure.
Everything's been put around to flushing for short term, to new lines and filtration. Sounds like it's a mix of all of these things that we need to really get our system going, and so that we can turn on the tap and know with confidence that we're going to have clean, good tasting, not murky water in these events. And so that's all great, but it's a little scary when you just hear talking about it.
Sure.
Right? So I guess it would be comforting for our citizens and for me as mayor to know, have you ever had to tackle anything like this before? And if so, how did you solve it?
Sure. Well, where we're sitting, right? So this plant serves what we call Southern Indiana. It's our Southern Indiana district. So it's pretty much the retail customers inside of I-265 as it loops around Southern Indiana. Most of the customers in that area are direct customers of Indiana American Water. This plant also provides wholesale water to a number of the surrounding water utilities. So, we actually go out as far as Ramsey Water in Edwardsville and Silver Creek and Floyd's Knobs and Watson. So a lot of the utilities on the outer ring are customers. Sometimes all their water comes from us, sometimes just a part of it. But so this plant was built as a regional water supply. But to directly serve Indiana Americans customers here, this plant replaced two sources that were here previously. So about 20 years ago, the western side of the system in New Albany was served by a surface water plant that had the Ohio River as a source in New Albany. And that became ultimately problematic because surface water is difficult to treat and expensive, and new regulations made it all the more so. The eastern side of the system was served by groundwater wells along the Ohio River. And Interestingly, very similar in water quality to Charlestown, nearly identical in terms of manganese concentrations and iron concentrations for that matter. Iron's low here. Often iron and manganese go together. We see manganese being the problem, and that's the black part of what we see. So this plant was built to solve those problems of the surface water system and the unfiltered groundwater that was supplied for this side of the system. So the project was probably 4 or 5 years in the making. It involved transmission system improvements and storage tanks and ultimately the building of this plant which filters manganese from the groundwater.
Awesome. So it's not just that you have a plan to deal with Charlestown's manganese problem. You've done it before.
That's right.
That's great.
And you know, we've done it. It's not been the result of a mandate. Interestingly, the Safe Drinking Water Act does not require removal of iron or manganese. Individual states can do that. I'm familiar with some states that do it. Indiana does not. So it's a choice to make this improvement to serve customers, and it's a choice we've made here. It's a choice we've made in other parts of the Indiana, and it's a choice we're making in Charlestown as well.
Good. Well, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us, and I've seen the plant before. I've gotten to come and do a tour of the plant. It's a remarkable facility. You guys do wonderful work. I just wanted to make sure that you had a chance to talk directly to the customers in Charlestown because it's so important, especially in a time right now where you're flushing the system, everybody's frustrated, we're seeing some of the water come through, we're having to wash our clothes with the iron out stuff that we've got to get things done. And I mean, it's a routine that we're used to, but it certainly sometimes feels as though it's just a kind of a repeat of over and over and over. So I'm glad to hear that you do have some long-term solutions, that you have the experience overcoming the exact same situation before. I guess as a final word, what would you like to say to the folks in Charlestown, or some final thoughts that you would like to just have them take away from this interview?
Sure. I think for one, we understand the problems. We've seen them. We respond to them as best we can. We'll work hard in the short term to implement these things that'll mitigate it, ultimately not fix it, and we'll continue pursuing these long-term solutions that we've talked about. I think it's another case of asking for patience. That's very difficult. People have experienced problems for years and years, and they've heard promises for years and years. Mm-hmm. And so I guess ultimately the happy day will be when we turn that filtered supply on, and that when we continue to work through these problems we find in the distribution system. So I guess it's just a commitment that we're making. It sounds like a promise. Hope it's not an empty promise, but I would say that it's a commitment to our customers. All we do is treat water and clean wastewater in our company, and so you have to be good at that. You have to be committed to it. You have to understand the customer impacts. If that's all you do, that's your business, well, you better be good at it. So.
Good deal. What can customers do if they need to reach out, if they're having a particularly problematic event at their home or something? How do you recommend that they get in touch with you?
Sure. We do have our regular customer service toll-free number for making that request. So that's one method, and they identify them as a specific water quality problem. We have a full-time water quality person here that serves Southern Indiana, not just here, but a couple other places. But that person's ready to respond as well. So it's let us know.
Okay.
And I think too, I'll make a comment. We do monitor the Facebook traffic, so we're aware of that. I appreciate the city's help in managing that as well. So we are sensitive to that, and we do monitor that, so it doesn't go unnoticed.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Bill. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for our Live at 5 and sharing this information and giving folks the opportunity to see firsthand what you've done, where you're going, and then even long term that there is a bright side to this. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, Mayor. And I think one of the other things is that probably regular communication with people is a good thing. And I think we have some ideas around that. We look forward to working with you in the city about maybe some ways we can proactively to give updates without necessarily responding to a big problem in the system. So thanks for your help.
As you can see, Indiana American Water has a long way to go, but they're ready to take those steps. And it's relieved to know for me that we can reach out and communicate with them at any time. I just wanted to make sure that our residents and our citizens, our water users, understand that this is a problem that we are still working on. Infrastructure improvements go a long way into welcoming growth and development, but it's also an obligation that we have to you as our citizens and our customers to make sure that you have all of the resources you need, with water being one of those top needed resources. So thanks to everyone at Indiana American Water here in Jeffersonville for spending time with me, showing us around, and letting you in Charlestown see that there's hope. I'll see you next week for another Live at 5, and until then, just remember, we are Charlestown.